Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, where today I'm going to be ranking all of my 12 to 15 pan eyeshadow palettes. I've got a pretty decent stack over here, and I'm excited to go through them and figure out, where I would place these in a ranking based on my current preferences, because that's really what it's about. It's about how I'm feeling at the moment. If I ranked these at a different time, I might put them in a different order, but right now, this is what we're going to go with. If you've never been here before, hello, my name is Rachel, and I am a homeschooling stay-at-home mom. I love to play with colorful eyeshadow. This eyeshadow look is not filmed by me because I followed a tutorial by Angelica Nyqvist. I will link that down below in the description box, along with everything else that I'm wearing. I upload multiple videos every week, all eyeshadow related content, so if you like what you see and you want to see more, don't go anywhere, just hang out. Let's get going with this video. The palette that I used for today's look was the Serenity palette from Cosmic Brushes. I recently did a video where I used that palette, and I can card that above for you, but then I really wanted to recreate the look that Angelica Nyqvist did when she reviewed the palette for the first time. So that video is linked below in the description box. So beautiful. I just didn't feel the need to film it again because she already did all of that. Anyway, this is how it looks on me. So much fun. It's so much fun. Okay, so I also recently did a ranking all of my 9-pan palettes, and I can link that in the description box as well if you care to see that. It's almost all ColourPop with a few others thrown in there. And I'm pretty sure as I was looking through my collection today that I missed one or two, because some of my smaller Uden's eye palettes were 9 pans, and off the top of my head, without having checked, I don't think I ranked those. Oh well. Anyway, this is where we are. Today, we're going to look at all of my 12 to 15 pan palettes. So I'm going to start at the very bottom. I'll put the number on the screen so that I don't get confused. And again, like I said in the beginning, this is completely subjective to my preferences right now. If I were to do this at a different time, I might put them in a different order. I might get rid of some or move things around. I don't know. It's subjective. This is just kind of a whim. Let's just have fun. So we're going to start at the very bottom. Now, I will say, as a little caveat, pretty much everything in my collection at this point is good quality. I mean, I don't keep it if it's not good quality. This whole ranking is really about color story. It's about what the palette gives me and how I'm feeling about those shades right now at this juncture in my life. So we're going to start at the bottom with the Limoncello palette from ColourPop. I like this palette. I don't dislike it at all. It's really good quality. I just have it at the bottom of most of my rankings simply because it's quite neutral, and I almost never wear neutrals. And honestly, at this point, I'm learning that when I do wear neutrals, I personally look better in cooler toned, more purple blush leaning neutrals as opposed to the yellowy browns. So even though I do like this palette, and when I want these sorts of warmer neutrals, this is the one that I automatically go for, and it has a couple of fun pops of color too, I have to put it at the bottom because I don't often reach for these colors. Next, we have the Oceanic palette from Ace Beauté. This one's ranking lower because while I think that this is a beautiful blue and green color story, I think it's just executed so well. It is still simply 2 colors. And honestly, I have at this point, green is my favorite eyeshadow color to wear, so I have a lot of greens in my collection, and I have to realistically look at the palette and say, how often does it get used, and does it bring anything new, exciting, different, interesting? So because it's only 2 colors, even though it's really well done within those 2 colors and there's a lot of variety and you can get some stunning looks, I have to put this one lower too, just because there are other palettes in my collection that offer me the greens I want to play with, along with other colors as well. Next, we're going to talk about the Lush Life palette from ColourPop. I am tempted to pass this one along. I do really like this color story. I like the palette a lot. I love the packaging. The quality is excellent. The formula is good. I just don't find it as inspiring as I used to. And I think part of that's due to simply having more palettes than I used to, but it is a great palette. It's such good quality. I do like that we've got a range of depth in here. The shimmers, except for this one, are all lighter toned, which is a preference of mine. I like mid to light toned shimmers. This one's pretty dark, but I would use it to blend into a dark blue or green outer corner, the palette doesn't get used as much as it used to when I had a smaller collection, because now there are lots of other palettes which excite me more, but it is a really good palette. It's quite pretty, and the color story is cool. It's just different. Let's talk now about the Still Pretty palette from September Rose Cosmetics. I used this one yesterday, actually. I do really like this palette. I think this is a great pink and red palette with other complementary colors. We've got more yellowy neutrals and the white and purples. It's a good palette. The only reason that I'm putting this one lower is because I have found that pink is one of my least used eyeshadow colors. I look good in pink. I look good in red. And I tend more towards mixing red with orange or yellow rather than mixing it with pink. I just don't really go for pink that often. So it's got to be lower simply for that reason. It's a good palette, it's good quality. I always enjoy the looks I get from it, but they don't excite me a lot. And that's something I have to keep in mind when I'm tempted by other palettes that, okay, Rachel, yes, the color story is beautiful, but if it's pink heavy, I know that it's not going to get much use in my collection. So this one is good and I do like it, but it has to be lower because I don't reach for these colors very often. Next, I want to talk about the Nomad Cosmetics Iceland Fire and Ice palette. I got this one used off of Mercari or Poshmark. It might not be totally fair for me to rank it right now because I've only used it a few times, but that is the case with a couple of these palettes, and I felt more comfortable ranking those. So we'll throw it in there because I do have it. I have used it. I like this palette. I think it's got a cool color story. This is a little bit lower on the scale today because it's pretty blue heavy, and I like blues, but I have other palettes that are more blue heavy, which are higher in the ranking, simply for formula or tones, you know. But this palette's really interesting. I do enjoy that they paired these warm tones in the center, like the lava and the magma, and then we've got more unique tones over here with the mint and the lavender and this multi-chrome on the end, a couple of deepening shades. It is really pretty. It's fun to play with, and I think it's cute. They've got little gnomes peeking out from various places, and the packaging is fun. It's textured on the front. It's a good palette. I do like it, and I look forward to playing with it some more. Now let's mention the At Far Sight palette between Raw Beauty Kristi and ColourPop. This is one of my favorite ColourPop palettes. It's just beautiful. I think that the reason this one is not higher is because this isn't just a ColourPop ranking. This is an everything ranking based on number of pans, so there's that. But I do wish that this palette had a couple lighter toned mattes that matched these cooler blue-green shades over here. The lighter toned mattes that we have are more pinky and yellow, and they do work with the blues and greens for sure, but I wish we had maybe a lighter sage green just to bring in a little bit more variety. However, it's only a 12 pan palette, so it's small, and I think that Kristi did an amazing job with this palette. The packaging, the shade range, the options, the two shimmers but more matte heavy, it's really nice. Here now is the Solmone 2 eyeshadow palette from Udenzai. I really love Udenzai. I love their formula, their packaging, their color stories are unique and interesting. This palette is so well reviewed across the board. I like that it has, again, a good range of depth. We've got 3 deepening shades that work with whatever else you've got going on. The shimmers are mid to light toned. Again, that's my preference. We have lots of mattes. I find that this palette, I don't use it as much as I thought I would, honestly. It is a great palette, and it's a great sampling of what Udenzai can do. If you want to just try the brand and you like these colors, I recommend this palette because you're gonna like what you get. But I have not recently been going into this one, and I'm not completely sure why. I really don't know why. It is a lovely palette. I do very much enjoy the formula. There's beautiful color payoff. I could have done about half of today's eyeshadow look using this palette. I would have needed to dip into something else to get these other tones. But I mean, yeah, this is a beautiful palette. It's good quality. I have no complaints. I have no qualms, nothing to pick at. It's just, right now, it's not something I'm diving into all the time. But this is just a season, and that could change. Surprisingly, I put the Star Wars palette from ColourPop higher than that Udenzai palette. And I say surprisingly because this palette is actually kind of heavy on the neutrals. The pops of color are obviously the blue and the red, and then, I mean, I think gold counts as a neutral, right? It's got a lot of neutrals. But these, unlike the Limoncello, are the kinds of neutrals that really look good on me. When I use these neutrals, they turn more purpley on my blue-based skin tones, and they look quite flattering. And then especially with this shade up here, Outer Rim, which is sort of a silver red marble shade, when you mix it together to actually apply it, it goes purple. And then purple looks good with the blues, and purple is a nice contrast point for the reds. It's weird to me that I'm liking it as much as I am because of the color story. I fully expected to like it because of the formula, but the color story, even though it's neutral, just is working on my skin tone, and I do enjoy that. So when I'm feeling a little bit less flamboyant clown eyeshadow look, I can go into something more like this and still get a beautiful, highly pigmented, quite metallic look, like the shimmer, the silver shimmer in here. Amazing. But it's in neutral tones that are more exciting to me because they're not boring. Is that okay? I know a lot of people love neutrals. I like neutrals on other people, but when I see them on myself, I'm like, oh, well, I mean, it looks great, but it could have been so much more fun. I tend to want fun eyeshadow, but when I am feeling a little bit more subdued, or for example, my husband doesn't really care for eyeshadow, so When he's around or on the weekends, I don't usually wear it, but if I do really want to wear eyeshadow that day, I tend to head into the more neutral territory. So it's kind of a bridge between his no eyeshadow preferences and my clown color eyeshadow preferences, somewhere in the middle, and this definitely helps bridge that gap quite nicely. Turns out that was number 5, so now palette number 4, I have the Alice in Wonderland palette from Sigma. I am a little surprised by this. When I bought this palette, it was my first time trying Sigma, and I really liked the color story. The first time I tried the palette, I was a little bit taken aback by the performance of the shadows because they move around a lot more. They're very pigmented. I think the first time I used this palette, I started with this brown and it went everywhere. And I was like, oh my goodness. So it was a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I have come to very much appreciate this formula. It is a good formula. The shimmers are not see you from space kind of shimmers, but because they're more traditional, but still pigmented, still shiny and sparkly and pretty and good quality, they look good on textured or aging skin. So I think that I'm gonna appreciate this palette as my eyeshadow preferences morph and change with age. I don't know, I do really like it. I like the color story. It's still fun, it's still whimsical, and it's good quality. Top 3 now. Here is the Whistler Snow Lodge palette. This was given to me as a Christmas gift by a very thoughtful subscriber, and I love this color story. This color story is it's just so on theme. I mean, it works perfectly with the snow, icy, cold, chilly, wintry kind of aesthetic of a snow lodge. We have these beautiful light toned blues and greens and snowy, iridescent, crispy whites. I don't know, there's just a lot of, yes, that's a winter sort of color. But then we also have deepening shades, especially like this one is a deep, deep blue. And we have a couple warmer shades over here, like you might see somebody skiing down the slope in a rust colored jacket or something. I don't know. I've never been on a ski slope. I hope that changes at some point. But I think this palette is perfectly on theme. There's fun wordplay in the names of the shadows. The packaging is good. It's just beautiful. This and the Fire and Ice palette are the first times that I've tried Nomad. So I'm enjoying the formula and the looks I get. It's good quality, it's fun to play with, and it's a color scheme that makes me go, ooh, what could I do next? And that is always something I'm looking for in a palette. I want to do a look and then immediately be thinking, oh, what's the next look I can do using this palette? Because that to me is a good palette. In spot number 2, I am placing my very favorite green palette. If you guys have been here for a little while, you know that that's the Dirty Martini palette from Glamlight. This was part of their happy hour collection, and it's the only one I've bought from that collection, though I have been tempted to get some of the others. But I love this palette. This palette just makes me smile. I find that green is now my favorite color. It's very peaceful, calming color. Even if it's a lime or neon green, to me it just feels, you know, that's just how I feel when I wear green, when I see green. And so this palette makes me smile. And because it's not only green, we have some blues and we have some bronzy, metallic kind of tones over here. You could go more neutral. You could go very vibrant and bright with this green olive shade, a limey shimmer, and it's just beautiful. I think it is missing an inner corner highlight, but aside from that, I just love this palette. I really enjoy the Glamlight formula. It is solid. It's pigmented, buildable, blendable. The shimmers are amazing. Yeah, number 2 out of this ranking video. And number 1, I had to put the Flare palette from Ace Beauté. I love this color story. This color story is nothing but inspiring to me. All the time, I look at the palette and I go, ooh, that's a great idea. Oh, I should pair these looks together. Oh my goodness, I want to do this next time I play with the palette. That's what I'm looking for in a palette, and that's what the Flare palette gives me. I get so many ideas. I get so inspired, and even when I see other people's looks using this palette, like I think Pigments from the Arcane on Instagram, she recently did a look using this palette, and she paired, what was it? She paired this matte with this shimmer. And that's so weird, but it worked. It was so cool. And I'm like, oh, I should try that. So this is the kind of palette that gets me excited. This color story is just very interesting. It's pretty heavy on the harvest tones. And randomly, we've got these purpley tones over here, cool tone blues and purples. And I don't know. Whoever comes up with the color stories at Ace Beauté does a really solid job. So there you go, guys. That is my ranking video for, what was it, 12 to 15 pans. I'm going to do a separate video at some point, probably. I make no promises because I'm about to have a baby, but at some point I plan on ranking my 16 pans because there are a good amount of those. Mainly BH Cosmetics and ColourPop, but some new things that have come into my collection too. These videos are so fun because not only does it give me a chance to go through my collection, touch everything, see every color story, remember looks I've done and memories with certain palettes, like the At First Sight palette for me has some memories. Those are all very fun, but it's also really cool to figure out where my preferences are right now and what I'm feeling. You know, am I feeling the lighter blue, purple, ethereal looks, and that's why this palette's at the top? Or am I feeling the more green looks, and that's why this palette's at the top? Or am I feeling neutrals, which would be really weird, but it's kind of happening, and that's why these palettes are at the top. I don't know, it's just so much fun to go through the collection and re-experience everything under a different umbrella. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being with me. Remember to check Angie's video to find this eyeshadow look. Look at my description box to find other details that you may be curious about. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and until I see you again, I hope you have a great day. Bye!